A staple of pretty much all of the Fallout games thus far have been the vaults you actually find in those games. In Fallout 34 and 76, you awake kind of confused out of a vault of some kind that had various different things going on the inside. But with Fallout 76, they're taking a little bit of a different approach with the vaults in this game. They don't play nearly as fundamental a role outside of the core vault, Vault 76. In this video, what I actually want to do is highlight some of the existing vaults that we know about, and it seems like we have a pretty comprehensive list. And more or less, I want to do this for two reasons. First and foremost, just to inform you guys on these vaults, but also there actually is another beta stress test today and tomorrow. There aren't a ton of resources out there or even things talking about these vaults, so I'll make this comprehensive video and you could go and discover and find some of them on your own later today. I also will be live streaming later tonight, so if you guys do want to subscribe and check out my adventure, I actually am planning on doing the top of the world building, as well as I actually got a quest to go and discover or interact with the Brotherhood of Steel somewhat. But either way, starting things off, the most obvious and prominent of the vaults, Vault 76, the one we come out of ourselves. Because I'm sure many of you guys do know, in a lot of these vaults there actually are these kind of crazy experiments going on, trying to figure out how humans will react in a very abstract and odd situation. Well, in Vault 76, that's actually not the case. This is one of the 17 control vaults that are in Fallout's universe, and as controls work in real-life experiments, basically with this vault, everyone was put in, and 25 years later, everyone was let out. No kind of crazy or wacky things going on in the middle. A few interesting things about the vault itself. The people selected to enter into this were considered luminaries from the surrounding regions, basically people that were particularly smart or well off. Even beyond that, after the vault door itself actually opened, the vault was meant to be shut down, a lot of the basic functions not working anymore. As you walk through the vault, you could see a lot of this with a lot of those inaccessible doors. One thing that seemingly doesn't have a concrete answer just yet on Vault 76 is why it opened 5 years late. I tried Googling and reading around to find a concrete answer, but I just couldn't find one. Either way, as we saw this vault in previous Fallout games, it was reported to open 20 years later, but in Fallout 76, it actually opens 25 years later after the doors of it shut. So we all knew about Vault 76. Well, what about some of the other vaults? Well, one I found personally during my playthrough was Vault 94. This one's actually particularly interesting since it opened significantly earlier than a lot of the other vaults. In-game, you're going to discover it at the edge of this mountain range. It seems like this vault actually did have an experiment of some kind going on with it. In the welcome message, it's actually described as being founded on faith, nonviolence, and communal life in harmony with nature. They were blessed with an abundance of resources and are committed to sharing them with all those in need. Based on some of the terminal entries, it seems like this vault housed a pastor and his congregation. It seems like that's relevant to whatever experiment was actually going on here. One thing that is particularly interesting about this vault, though, is it actually opened after 1 year. The vault doors closed on October 23rd, the day the bombs dropped, and they actually opened on October 23rd, 1 year later. Something notable that you could actually take away from the terminal entries, it seems like the original pastor that was leading the congregation, well, he wasn't the pastor anymore when the vault door opened 1 year later. What happened to him is totally unknown, but based on the wording, it definitely seems like something did happen to him. They also mentioned how their goal, now that the vault doors are opened, is actually to see how nature has changed and actually do some rebuilding with that. But even beyond that, they actually allowed visitors into this vault. Yet as you find it, the vault door is locked, and when you actually try and use the vault door control, it says you do need your vault ambassador. It seems very likely that this could be an area of future content. As of right now, Bethesda has said that none of the other vaults are enterable, but it seems like this is just ripe for a DLC. They establish enough of the backstory, and they'll probably just expand on this lore as you actually get into the vault. So I never personally found Vault 63, but somebody on YouTube actually posted a video of him exploring it. I'll have that video linked in the eye if you guys want to check out the full version, but otherwise a huge shout out to Runnin' Sniper. If you're curious about the location, this is where Vault 63 is located on the map, so you guys can hopefully find this later on, but it seems like there is way less info provided because it was way less open to visitors. This vault is significantly more hidden away than Vault 94, and definitely seems like people that didn't know about it weren't supposed to find it. After going down, the terminal tells you that only authorized personnel are allowed here, but in the footage you could see what looks like a keycard reader, a new kind of lock-picking device in Fallout 76. Like in order to get past a certain door, you need a keycard. Again, Bethesda has reported that none of these vaults are openable, but this seems like another area where there will almost definitely be DLC. Maybe they're lying and there actually is a keycard floating around that will get you into this vault. But as of right now, it seems like we know very little, and although the vault door looks particularly cool, there's not much else to go on outside of that. And then finally, with the last one of the explicit vaults that we know of in Fallout 76, but don't worry, I have something else for you. That's going to be Vault 96. So there's actually no footage I could find of this. There's a few people talking about it, but there's very few details. The location was reported as the end of State Route 103 in the Savage Divide. One user writes that it actually is outward facing, similar to Vault 94, where you can see the door on the outside this time around. Considering there's no reports of holotapes or any lore really given, I have to assume this is another one that gives very little backstory as to what's actually going on. But as I said before, there actually is another vault in Fallout 76. It's just a little bit different than some of the other ones. The previous four are the explicit vaults we know about in Fallout 76 thus far. There might be another one locked away somewhere that nobody has found. I know a lot of people are probably thinking of the Greenbrier Bunker, but that is seemingly not a vault, but a bunker, which are two distinguishable things in this game. I actually found a bunker on my own playthrough, and it's definitely not a vault. But then we actually do have the Vault-Tec University Vault Simulator. This again isn't like an official vault, but rather what this was a 4-week program under Vault-Tec University. More or less, they were educating people there on how to be overseers. You had to take certain classes, you could actually find some remnants of this. But before I get too deep into this, I actually do want to say a lot of the gameplay you'll be seeing in the background is not my own for this one either. It's from a YouTuber named Sho Kasugi. I'm going to have it linked in a little eye. He pretty much goes through and explores this entire Vault-Tec simulator. So if you want to actually see some just nice raw gameplay of this, click there. I'll also have it linked in the description in case you want to see it later. And he does a really good job at not being over encumbering with his commentary. If you want like just a laid back, you kind of play the game but get some commentary every once in a while, this is going to be a good guy to watch for that. So either way, at Vault-Tec University, they were educating overseers. And it seems like to actually graduate from this program and become a full-on overseer who can lead up a vault, you actually had to run an experiment in this vault simulator. It effectively functioned like a normal vault. You were locked in there for 4 weeks, and then you had a bunch of participants who were also locked in there and had to go through whatever your experiment was. And it is mentioned that if you requested outside help, you would fail and not be able to become a overseer. So this part's going to be spoilers. I'll put a little timestamp on screen if you want to skip it, but I'm going to tell you what actually goes on in this experiment and the kind of darker story behind it. So more or less, somebody was trying to test their thesis. This guy's thesis was actually on this food paste formula that was meant to be really efficient and actually give you a wide variety of different flavors and options, and all around just be a better alternative to food while also much more efficient to use in vaults and have a lot of. So this experiment started around mid-October of 2077. They were locked into this vault, and again, you can request outside help, but that would make it so the overseer failed. Well, a week or so into the experiment, someone actually ends up getting a heart attack. At first glance, it just seems random, but they actually do a full-on autopsy and find out that it was the food paste. It was creating arterial buildup, and all in all, it was going to be a big problem. Before this, it seemed like the food paste was actually a big success and more efficient. People reported enjoying it quite a bit, and the overseer in training even reports that it's actually filling people up faster than they originally thought it would. They're not eating as often or as frequently as they would with regular food. Well, it turns out that wasn't actually the case. Finding out the food paste is causing issues, he tells everyone to switch back to the regular food that they do have a stockpile of, but that's when he discovers that actually everyone hated the food paste and had secretly been eating some of that regular food the whole way. So now, despite having weeks of the experiment left, they didn't have enough regular food to actually make it to the end. The overseer in training was obviously hesitant to signal for help because that marks his failure, but then a lot of the vault dwellers were saying that they're going to revolt if he doesn't do so. People are dying. So finally, the overseer in training gives in and he does signal outside. The problem being, this all occurred over the course of the Great War beginning and the bombs being dropped. He got no response from the outside because, well, the bombs dropped, everyone was gone. Unfortunately, the people in the vault didn't believe him. They threatened him continuously and eventually tried to break into his office where he bunkered down. In his last terminal entry, you find out how he's going to go back to his room now and try and lock himself in there as they're getting closer to his office. In reality, when you go here, you could actually find a ton of bodies as well as the overseer in his office having taken rat poison. The vault itself is in a pretty pristine condition, as you were kind of seeing through some of the gameplay. They had automated systems to clean up much of it, and honestly, the first thing I thought, this would be an awesome place to put your camp down, although I doubt you're going to be able to. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Those are the vaults of Fallout 76. I know a lot of you guys are pretty curious about these, so I figured I'd share some of them with you. And of course, with that playtest later today, hopefully a bunch of you guys will be able to actually go to these locations and explore some of these vaults yourself, especially the ones we don't know a ton about. But either way, before we end things off, we're also going to have today's psychology fun fact of the day, and this one's going to be an experiment, because it seems very fitting, and actually an unethical experiment. It's a pretty famous one, so you may have heard heard of it, but the Little Albert experiment was conducted in 1920, and more or less they wanted to see if they could actually create an association with a young child. In this case, little Albert was only 9 months old, hypothesizing that by putting certain things in front of this child, creating certain associations, they could lead to him having an irrational fear. You choose a baby like this because they hypothetically don't actually have a ton of associations yet, so they're kind of a blank slate, if you will. So what they did was actually place down a white rat in front of this child. Initially, the child didn't really react to it. It's just a rat. He doesn't know rats are scary or doesn't have any associations with that. But then they would hit a metal bar and actually create this really loud noise to try and scare the child. They would only do this when the rat was there, and very quickly the child actually created that association and began to fear the rat whenever it was placed in front of him, even without the noise. Obviously, this is pretty unethical. You shouldn't do this to your kids. But one of the big takeaways from this and further research was when you're in your infancy stage, when you're actually just kind of creating certain associations, going through synaptogenesis, certain fears you acquire then can stay with you for your entire life. Now, of course, there's ways to get over those fears, break some of those associations, but these things are very stable and without that action can just be there forever. But with that being said, as always, again, I thank you all for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. Hopefully you found it informative, and I hope to see a bunch of you guys with my live stream later. But with that, I thank you for watching again, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.